About 4 years ago, my brother and I started a company. We started developing apps for e-commerce. It's a SaaS company, a startup, call it whatever you want. The thing is, we did not raise any money. We bootstrapped it. But what is bootstrapping? What does it mean? And should you do it? And if you should, how do you do it? This video will answer all of these questions. Follow along. But before we get started, I just wanted to announce that this video includes a giveaway. We are giving away a 30-minute consultation call with either me or Eric, and we usually charge for these calls on Clarity, but we wanted to give it away for our audience on YouTube. Since the channel is pretty small, you actually have a pretty high chance of winning. To learn how to get into the giveaway, keep watching, the details will be later in the video. So what is bootstrapping? Bootstrapping is basically self-funding. It means that you don't raise any money, you don't raise any capital to start your business. Pretty simple, right? It has its pros and its cons. But the thing is, it feels like nowadays, especially in the tech world, it's so easy to raise money. So easy. People are basically like throwing their money at you. Just take it.
Shut up and take my money!
Really, the big buzzword right now with startups is a unicorn. Everyone wants to be a unicorn, which is basically a startup that is valued by over $1 billion. And to get there, you pretty much have to raise capital. You have to raise more than one round. A lot of companies need that money. It's good that people can raise money to start businesses that end up improving all of our lives, hopefully. But the thing is, you might be looking at it from the side and saying, so to be successful, I have to raise at least $1 million, at least. Otherwise, I'm a failure. Otherwise, I will not be able to succeed in business. That's not true. There is an alternative, and that is bootstrapping. And in this video, I want to present this alternative to you so that you can make an informed decision of whether or not you should bootstrap or raise money. And if you decide to bootstrap, I'm going to help you with some principles on how to do it. So what are the cons of bootstrapping? The biggest con is that you are risking your own money. When you bootstrap, you don't raise any capital. So you use whatever money you already have, or maybe you take a loan. But you're risking your own financials. You're not risking someone else's money. Some people would see it as a pro. It's kind of scary to risk someone else's money, but it is very scary to get yourself into debt and maybe not be able to get out of it thanks to the business, because the business might not succeed. So that means there is higher personal risk. You don't know when your next salary would be. You don't know when the business will start making enough money, and you don't know if you end up returning your investment. That is scary. Definitely. There are ways to combat that we'll talk about later. The second con is that you need to figure things out on your own. You don't have the support system that someone who actually raised capital has. When you raise capital correctly, then your investors become the advisors, and they can help you, introduce you to people, and help you learn about how to manage a business in that scale slowly. When you are bootstrapped, you don't have that. You might hire a coach if you have the money for it, and you might have some friends who could help you. But generally speaking, you kind of need to figure everything out on your own. It's kind of like when people used to say, I have a degree from the University of Life. Bootstrapping means I have a business degree from the University of Life. And the last con is because you are funding it yourself, you don't necessarily have the resources. You don't have the resources for offices, for a team, for marketing, for logistics. All of that can really slow you down. Theoretically, if you raise money, you will grow faster. I say theoretically because it's not always the case. Sometimes bootstrapping allows you to grow faster because you have to be creative because you don't have a lot of resources. We're going to talk about the pros now, and you'll see why I'm saying that. So the first pro is that you have full control and flexibility. So you have full control of what goes on. You don't have a board of directors to answer to. No one is breathing down your neck, letting you know you have to do things that way, or you have to start that amount of money in this quarter, or else. You don't have that. You only answer to yourself, to your customers, to your employees if you have any. So the control is 100% yours. You decide what to do and where to take it. For example, this YouTube channel, we pay for it from our company's revenue, for the equipment, for the video editors, for everything. This is not really a direct correlation to what we do. We just like doing this, so we decided to spend money on it. If we had directors who only care about the bottom line, we might not be able to do this. So there's a lot of flexibility. This flexibility also allows you for very quick decision making. If you want to pivot, you can just do it. I can't do that, but people who can snap their fingers can do it. If you decide to completely change some features, to change the direction you're going, any decision you want to make, you can do it very, very fast. Another pro, and maybe that's the most important one for a lot of people, is that you have 100% of your business. You do not share revenue with anyone else, unless you have a partner, of course. When you raise money, you give away percentages of your business. If you believe in your business, if you think this is going to make a lot of money, wouldn't it make sense to keep 100% of it for yourself? The next part of the video, I will tell you how you could bootstrap. And even if you do decide to raise money, I would recommend you keep watching, because a lot of these principles are helpful when you are raising money as well, to make sure you are very efficient with your time and resources. But before we do, I promised you a giveaway. To join and get the opportunity to win a 30 minutes consultation call with either me or Eric, all you have to do is A, subscribe to this channel, because if you haven't yet, then what are you doing with your life? Go ahead and subscribe right now. And B, you would have to comment on this video telling us, are you a bootstrapper or a raiser? Do you prefer to raise capital or do you prefer to bootstrap? Let us know in the comments. Bonus points if you also tell us why. What is your personal reason? The winner will be announced via our community tab by the time the next video comes up, so you have to follow and actually check out the posts that we make so that you know who won. Now I'm going to talk about 5 principles to help you bootstrap your successful business with examples from our product Reconvert, which is the biggest product that we currently own in Steal Your Apps. That is the name of the company. Number 1 is keep your costs as low as possible while still providing value and serving your customers. How do you do that? So you would do that by doing everything yourself. When you first get started, you are everything. You're a one-man show or a two-man show, depending on how many people are starting this business, and you do everything. There is no job too big or too small. You would have to learn a lot of skills, but that's cool. That's a lot of growth, personal growth, at a very short amount of time. If you need to, you can get a loan. You would want to make this loan as small as possible because you are reducing costs as much as possible. Use freelancers if you have to hire someone, because it is much cheaper to hire a freelancer than it is an employee. And you can go for freelancers that live in countries where the cost of living is lower, so you can pay them less and they still live a pretty decent life in there. And you really want to find ways to lower your cost as much as possible. Do it all yourself and use free tools. Let me give you the Reconvert example. When we first got started, Eric and I did everything ourselves. The only thing we didn't do is develop the app, because we are not developers. We don't know how to do it. We found developers off of Upwork. At first it was one developer and it slowly grew into a team, but this is the only job we hired to for the first year. We did everything ourselves. Whenever we got extra money, we hired more developers. We use tools like Facebook Messenger to provide customer support because it's free. We created our servers on DigitalOcean because it's cheaper than AWS and it's still a good platform. We used only free advertising because we didn't have the money to do paid advertising. And we took some loans as well, personal loans. And yet, the initial development of the app was not that expensive. I'll let you know how much it cost very soon. Next few points. The second point is to focus on a narrow audience. Niche down as much as you can. If you try to cast a net that is too wide, you might miss out and you might get overwhelmed, because different types of customers, different types of audiences have different needs, and you don't have right now the resources and the capacity to develop for all of these needs. So focus on very specific audience type, a very specific need, only develop for that specific need and that specific audience. Later on, you can expand, but make it easy for yourself to actually get something out there by being very, very focused. If you are in the SaaS industry, a micro SaaS would be a really good idea. You can build a micro SaaS that later on can become an independent SaaS, but start by building it to a niche audience. Our example is very simple. We developed for Shopify. Reconvert is an app on the Shopify App Store. Our niche was Shopify store owners. very simple. Back then, the App Store was also smaller than it is now, and the amount of stores was smaller, so you could say it was a very niched audience. It still is a very specific niche. Point number 3 is to develop an MVP, a minimum viable product. This also refers to the focus point. You want to be very focused with where you are directing this product, who are the audiences, and what are the main features. And then you want to take the main features and create them into a walk-in MVP that you can launch. Make it as fast as possible and just release. Bugs and everything. Release, start getting user feedback, otherwise you're in a loop. One of the most important parts of bootstrapping is to start generating revenue as soon as possible, and this will help you do that by developing an MVP. In our case, like I said, we hired developers from the get-go because we couldn't do it ourselves, and we ended up paying about $20,000 to develop the Reconvert MVP. We did it through taking loans. We got into agreements with our developers of reducing the hourly rate a little bit just to get more job, and then later on we upped it again. It was a whole process figuring out how to get this done without running out of money. The $20K was probably a little too much. You could probably do it but for less. We did not build a good MVP. Our MVP was way too big. If I had to redo it, I would have developed a much leaner MVP focused on 3-4 specific widgets that we wanted to release. I think we released the app with like 7 or 10 widgets, which is a lot of features. Some of them, even today, customers are barely using. So learn from my mistakes and make a very lean MVP. Number 4 is to soft launch. Launch your product without a lot of flu and fanfare. Just launch it. Use free tactics to market your product. I have a video talking about some free ways to get customers. We'll link it up here so you can check it out. But as I said, your goal is to get customers as fast as possible, get customer feedback, and get revenue. Some things you can do is SEO, YouTube. If you are a micro SaaS, launch on the platform that you are building for. This is super helpful. With Reconvert, what we did is launch on the Shopify App Store. In the beginning, that's all we did. We launched on the App Store, we optimized our App Store listing for search, and we made sure to have good video, good images, everything. Even the video, we used a freelancer from Fiverr who did an amazing job for a very minimal amount of money. I don't remember exactly how much, but I think it was not more than $100, maybe less. We also shared the app on different Shopify groups on Facebook, so really go into where your niche audience is and make sure to share your product there. Soft launch, free as possible. We don't have the money to do a lot of marketing, a lot of paid advertising. This will come later. When you start generating money, you can roll this money back. And that segues me naturally to the last point, which is when you start making money, roll this money back into the business. Hire more people to do marketing, develop your product, do all of the things that you need to do to grow the business. Feed this snowball that is rolling. In our case, what we did, like I said, is we hired developers, and whenever we got more money, we added more developers so that the product can grow faster and faster and faster. After about a year, we hired the first support representative. Why support? It's super important to give good support, especially in a platform like Shopify where reviews are everything. So we wanted to continue to give good support, but it was getting to be a little too much. It was taking up too much of our time. So we hired someone to do it so we can free our time to work on the business and work on more impactful things. So when you start hiring, I would in the beginning focus on hiring for the jobs that are not high impact, that you can easily delegate, so you can focus on high impact stuff. Slowly but steady, you fill these roles. Our latest hires were for product managers and the development manager that can be kind of a CTO. And these are things that we waited to hire for until we felt like we could no longer do it. It was too much work. And this is really important in hiring. As a bootstrapper, you do everything yourself and you start hiring when you just can't do this. When you can't do something, when it's too much work, or you don't have the skills, you will hire someone to do that or learn the skills. Depends on the case. Like development, it would take way too long to learn. But marketing, we learned as we went along. One last point about hiring, and I talked about it when I talked about reducing costs. Try to use freelancers as much as possible. It will really reduce your costs this is a bootstrapping mindset. When you bootstrap, you have to be creative. I have seen this quote by Seth Godin, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but it basically says, instead of asking, how can I make it work? Ask yourself, how can I build it cheap enough that I don't care if it works? Reduce your risks as much as possible, no matter what stage you are in the business. Whatever you decide to do, try to reduce the risk so that if it doesn't work, not the end of the world, but you can still experiment. That is the golden goose of bootstrapping. If you want to know a little bit more about how we actually started with our business and how I learned how to manage a company and bootstrap it, there's a video talking about it here, and this is the video YouTube thinks you should watch. I had a great time talking to you guys today. I'll see you in the next one.